Hey there, and welcome to Scandal Steep, where you get entertained about celebrity scandal. Arsenio Hall has never been shy about claiming ownership of his platform. "This is my show," he often reminded both his guests and his viewers. It wasn't arrogance, it was conviction. His stage was a space where culture, politics, and entertainment collided, sometimes in celebratory ways, and at other times in moments that left scars on everyone involved. Over the years, Hall hosted countless celebrities, musicians, and public figures, but behind the laughter and applause, there were interviews that weighed heavily on him. Some guests weren't just difficult, they were destructive, even toxic. In fact, Hall would later admit that some appearances on the Arsenio Hall show haunted him long after the cameras stopped rolling. One of the earliest examples of this came during the infamous Milli Vanilli scandal. Rob Pilatos and Fab Morvan had once been chart-topping sensations, their music blaring from radios and dominating MTV. When they first appeared on Hall's stage, the mood was electric. The duo seemed unstoppable. But their return visit happened under drastically different circumstances. By the time they sat down with Hall again, their world had collapsed. News had broken that they had never actually sung on their records. What was once a dream career had turned into an international punchline. Sitting across from Hall, the two young men were no longer pop stars basking in glory. They were defendants in the court of public opinion. The interview quickly took on the tone of a televised trial. Hall's questions weren't cruel, but they highlighted just how far Rob and Fab had fallen. He asked whether friends had abandoned them in the aftermath. Their response was heartbreaking. Almost overnight, their once large entourage vanished. Fame had brought them hundreds of hangers-on, but scandal left them standing alone. What struck Hall most wasn't the deception itself, it was the raw human cost of it all. Rob and Fab weren't masterminds of fraud. They were inexperienced kids who made one catastrophic decision and were now forced to pay for it on the world stage. Their attempts to explain themselves, talking about contractual obligations and language barriers, sounded weak, yet their visible pain made them sympathetic. The moment that defined the interview came near the end, when Hall offered them a chance at redemption, the opportunity to sing live, to finally prove their talent to a skeptical world. But instead of triumph, the performance felt like desperation, two men clawing for survival. To Hall, it was devastating. He later admitted that the encounter stayed with him for years, not because the duo was uncooperative, but because he felt complicit in their public downfall. If the Milli Vanilli episode revealed the cruelty of the music industry, Diana Ross's appearance exposed the suffocating entitlement of superstardom. Booking Ross should have been a career highlight. She was, after all, one of the greatest icons in music history. But the experience became one of Hall's most frustrating nights on television. The problems began before Ross even stepped foot on stage. Her management sent a list of demands so excessive it rivaled those of world leaders. There were lighting specifications, camera restrictions, and an approved list of questions that avoided any reference to Motown drama, Berry Gordy, or the Supremes. When the show finally started, Hall expected to find some magic in the moment. Instead, he was greeted with rehearsed answers and robotic charm. Ross treated the entire interview like a press junket. Every response felt designed to sell her latest album rather than connect with viewers. Hall tried to pull her out of that shell, gently nudging her to share a personal story or a humanizing anecdote. But Ross resisted at every turn. Even when he asked about her first love, she dropped Smokey Robinson's name, an answer that felt more like brand building than honesty. The tension hit its peak when she launched into a long speech about her charitable work, sounding less like a guest in conversation and more like a politician delivering talking points. Hall realized, with growing disappointment, that this wasn't an interview at all. It was free advertising for Diana Ross, disguised as late-night television. The situation worsened after the cameras stopped rolling. Ross' team complained that Hall had been too personal, even though every question had been pre-approved by them in advance. To Hall, it was the epitome of entitlement. Why even bother doing a talk show if you had no intention of actually talking? If Ross represented the hollow side of superstardom, Vanilla Ice embodied the perils of cultural appropriation in real time. At the height of his fame, Vanilla Ice was everywhere. His single Ice Ice Baby had made him a household name, crossing over into mainstream pop culture. His appearance on Hall's show should have been a victory lap. Instead, it became one of the most awkward confrontations in late-night history. The problem was simple: authenticity. Within the hip-hop community, Ice was already being accused of exploiting the culture for personal gain. Critics questioned his background, his credibility, and his intentions. Hall, deeply embedded in the culture himself, wasn't going to let those questions slide. From the start, the interview was tense. Hall confronted Ice about his recent outburst, in which he told critics to kiss his white ass. The exchange set the tone for the entire conversation: combative, defensive, and uncomfortable. In a desperate attempt to prove his credibility, Ice pulled up his shirt on live television to reveal stab wounds from a past altercation. It was supposed to silence the doubters. Instead, it only made Hall more skeptical. To him, credibility in hip-hop wasn't earned by flaunting scars. It was built through respect and authenticity. Things only got worse. Ice stumbled through questions about his background, clung to shaky claims about his past, and even dragged Flavor Flav onto the stage, as if the mere presence of a respected black artist would shield him from criticism. To Hall, it was insulting, reducing Flav to a prop rather than recognizing him as an icon in his own right. By the end of the interview, Hall had reached his breaking point. Watching Ice misinterpret and exploit hip-hop culture left him disgusted. Later, he admitted that the interview was one of his earliest lessons in the complexity of cultural appropriation, how it could open doors for a genre while simultaneously undermining its roots. But if Vanilla Ice's appearance was frustrating, nothing could prepare Hall for the personal nightmare that came years later. In 2016, shortly after Prince's death, singer Sinead O'Connor made a shocking accusation on Facebook. Without offering a shred of evidence, she claimed that Hall had been Prince's longtime drug supplier. The timing was brutal. The world was mourning the loss of one of its greatest musicians, and Hall, who had been a close friend of Prince, suddenly found himself painted as a villain. The accusations spread like wildfire. In the age of social media, lies travel faster than the truth. Overnight, Hall's name was unfairly linked to Prince's death. For Hall, the betrayal was crushing. Prince wasn't just a guest on his show, he was a genuine friend. They had shared countless private and public moments. To suggest that Hall had contributed to his death was not only false, but devastatingly cruel. Hall's legal team responded immediately, filing a $5 million lawsuit. He wasn't after money, he was after the truth. He needed O'Connor to retract her words before the lie hardened into permanent fact. Though she eventually apologized, the damage was already done. No legal victory could erase the emotional toll of being falsely accused of betraying a friend. To Hall, the ordeal revealed something far scarier than any hostile guest: the terrifying power of social media to weaponize grief and nearly destroy a career in a single post.